Hi there, I'm Bev from Bev's Bells, and today I'm going to be demonstrating the deck squat, which I consider to be a precursor to the Turkish Get Up. So I would recommend you learn this properly first before you attempt the Turkish Get Up. Before we begin, you might want to have some props in hand. I have a loop, a band, and block, a wedge, and a Bosu. These are props that can help you in the different steps of the breakdown. First, we'll start with a mobility warm-up, just body weight only. So going to be just warming up the shoulders and spine, as well as the hips, knees, ankles. If you have any injuries at all or illnesses that impact your joints, and there's lots of pain, I would recommend you not perform this exercise. It is quite advanced, and there's no point in doing this exercise if you feel pain. All right, so we're just going to get down on our hands and knees, just do some cat-cow to warm up the spine, and then some sweeps with our arms just to open up the thoracic spine as well. In different ways, so not just flexion and extension, but opening up. Just reaching and twisting through. It's just to show you what exercises I do to warm up before something like this exercise that requires basically everything, your overhead, and you're using your whole body, and you end up down on the floor at one point as well. So, like I said, quite advanced. So making sure that your hips are nicely warmed up. Just a quick warm up again. And then we'll get into breaking down the exercises, or this exercise step by step. And I'll go over the props where you can use them. And eventually you'll end up without props and using either a hand weight or a kettlebell to perform the deck squat. So you might also want to practice your deep squats. First you would do air squats, making sure that your knees are tracking over the middle of your feet. Now, if they're not, you can use a band over your thigh, and this just forces you to press out on your abductors so that the knee tracks properly, keeping your torso upright. So you don't want to be bending forwards. Knees forward first in the squat, and then eventually, once you've warmed up enough, you can get into your low squat. If you need assistance again, you can also use a block on its highest end. You feel that maybe you can't get that low. Here we go. Right under your sit bones. Gives you a platform, and if that's a little unsteady, you could also use your Bosu to sit down. But eventually what you'd like to be able to do is to be able to get into a deep squat without pain in your knees, ankles, and obviously your hips. From here, do a little more sweeps for your thoracic spine and your shoulders, making sure that you think about putting your shoulders in their back pocket. So thinking about sliding that shoulder blade down, watching the hand so the head and neck follow. We do this so that we can mimic the right movement pattern that your shoulder, so the big humerus bone in the glenoid socket, so that it's properly aligned and sitting in there nice and solid. And then for your ankles, you could take a block if you want a little more mobility and stretching. I would just focus on just getting a little bit more range of motion in your ankles, because the deep squat does really put a lot of stress on the knees, hips, and ankles. And then once we've done this, we're just going to go over the bridge part of the deck squat, because if you're not able to engage in a bridge properly, I would recommend you practice that several times before you continue on with any weight, of course. So this part of the exercise, and you'll see the whole exercise in its entirety afterwards. But basically, when you're set up for a bridge properly, you want to be, your knees want to be tracking straight when you press up. Your heels maybe within fingertip distance of your hand, so that forces your shoulders down away from your ears. And you want to start off in a neutral where you have like a triangle that's at the same level of your pelvis before you start to engage anything to lift your hips up, making sure your neck is nice and comfortable and free. Then you do a posterior tilt like this, engage the glutes, then pressing down in the heels, you lift up into bridge formation, making sure that the knee, the hip, and the shoulder here are in line. You don't want this overarching like this. You're going to put a lot of load on your lower back and potentially really hurt yourself. You don't need to go any higher than this. So nice, long, straight line. And then when you're lowering, make sure that you lower by articulating each vertebrae of your spine, ending back down in that neutral position. Maybe a little bit of, space between your lower back and the floor. But when you're doing your posterior tilt at the beginning, that space disappears. And then engage the glutes, pull your belly button in, press up to level, and then down. We'll show you the rest of that move afterwards, including what you do with your arms in the exercise. So once you've done your air squats, your low squats, practicing your bridge, then you can start to do the exercise, put it all together, body weight only, just to make sure that you have the proper alignment and the right movement pattern down, using the right muscles, the right alignment. So you start, if you did have a weight, you would start with holding it at your chest, nice and close to you. And you start by lowering into a very deep squat. So you need to have your legs wide enough to accommodate a nice low squat. If you need assistance, again, you could use this and sit on the block, or like I said, the Bosu as well. You start there, you lower down, and if you wanted to use the wedge, you could also use the wedge sitting on the outside of it, and then you can slowly roll down safely by using the wedges and assistance. So I'll just take that out. And so you're here, nice low squat. You lower down using your core. You have your bell that's always here in front of your chest. And then I'll just go to the side. And then you lower down, bell is here. You start your bridge, and as you start your bridge, you're pressing up, you're taking the bell, bending your extensors here, so it's not a full lever, right? You're bending at the elbows, and the bell's handle touches the floor, taps it very lightly, and as you come down, your hips come down. You sit up with the bell. Now, if you can't do a proper sit-up without any assistance, for example, if you're down here and at this point you don't have any weight and you can't sit up, you need to press up, then practice this. Practice pressing up, and maybe just one, right? Until eventually you can sit up without assistance. That's very important. And from there, you have to return to your low squat. So you need to be able to go from here to here, and then standing tall. If you can't progress from the seated position to a low squat, you could feasibly do some kind of a 90-90 to get up, like this, in order to stand tall, which is something that you can do to accommodate in the Turkish Get Up as well. But eventually, the aim or the goal is to be able to go from a seated position into a low squat, and then from there to stand tall. And again, if you needed your wedge, you could use your wedge to go from here, to go from the floor. So your thumb would be underneath, and you would just sneak up a little bit until you have enough height under your bum to stand tall. As you can see though, it's not optimal to be using the props because it's going to slow the flow down of the actual exercise. So it's in entirety. I'll just show you what it looks like with a light weight, because once you get each of those components or steps down pat without any assistance, any tools, then you would progress to a light weight, and then obviously eventually your working weight. So I'll do it from both angles, from straight on and from the side. You start here, you do a nice deep low squat, lower down as your hips raise, kettlebell goes overhead, taps the floor, comes back, and stand tall. And I'll do it from the side. So, standing tall, low squat, down, hips raise, tap the floor. Oops, here we go. I'm out of the frame. Tap the floor, keeping those elbows bent, and stand tall. The bonus of having a weight is it acts like a counterweight as well. So when you're going from the supine position to the sit-up position, it can help you propel you forward a little bit as well, which is quite handy for people that have working on their core strength. So again, here, down, carefully overhead, core, and stand tall. From here, so keeping the bell close, so right up against the chest, elbows tucked in, lower down, deep squat, bum to the ground, hips raise as the bell goes overhead, taps the floor gently, comes back up. And you're done. All right, hopefully that was helpful for you. And if you have any questions, of course, you can always post something down below. Thank you. This was Bev's Bells, and